Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon. I'm a retired 27-year veteran of the NYPD. I retired as a sergeant out of Manhattan North Homicide Squad. And these are the special shows I do with some of the best that the officers, detectives, sergeants, lieutenants, chiefs that the NYPD ever produced. And tonight is no exception. He's actually was here almost exactly a year ago on Police Off the Cuff when we shot it down on Worth Street. And he's known a lot to a lot of people because he's a very unselfish retired member of the service. He was actually the most highly decorated police officer who retired as a police officer in NYPD history. So he knows how to walk the walk and he can talk the talk too. But the most unselfish thing that he does to this day is he runs the NYPD Valor site on Facebook, and he also has another Valor site that he keeps on the web. And what he does is he celebrates the great arrests that members of the NYPD make. Anti-crimes can't wait to go on Facebook, the NYPD Valor site, to see who made a gun collar the night before, because they know they're on the phone with Walter Wasilewski, who's putting their feats on the air on Facebook. So without further ado, let me welcome retired police officer, friend of mine, great guy, Walter Wasilewski.
Hey, Bill, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, 1 year flew by kind of quick.
Yeah, and think of the year it was.
Oh, God, I don't know. Maybe we disturbed the gods and the demons of below. But yeah, it's been a year to say the least. But yeah, thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's a pleasure. And you know something, I get such a kick out of going on the sites and seeing you posting these gun collars from these great anti-crimes that are still out there doing God's work, even though it's crazy out there, as we all know.
You know, I'll tell you, you always hear this a lot. You hear it a lot in the military. You hear it a lot in the police, that, like the greatest generation, and they don't make cops like that anymore. And I got to strongly disagree with that. They make them just as good and sometimes better. You know, you got these officers out there every day. The odds are against them. I mean, between the COVID, which is when is the last time something this tragic has happened? 100+ years ago. The public lately, I mean, they're getting a bad name with the riots and the BLM movement and the Antifa movement and just everything that's going on. And yet, day after day, you got these cops coming in with all these arrests and gun arrests, and they're still out there doing as you know that term, God's work. Yeah,
that's for sure. Walter, I'm going to share the screen there, and you put that up on the site, and it's showing that the NYPD has made 803 gun arrests this year, and
for the year, yeah.
And March isn't even over yet. And
yeah, it's crazy. There's some precincts, like I put a lot, like my day starts in the morning. I have my coffee, and I have a lot of officers that write me direct, and it's, hey, we got one last night. I get text 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's cool. I'll wake up and I'll put it on and then go back to bed. And the 7-3 in Brooklyn, has been notoriously famous for bringing in a lot of guns. And recently, I haven't seen anything. And then next thing you know it, boom, I get a thing. They made 8 or 12 gun arrests in 4 days.
That's incredible. And what they're up against too in getting these guns is unbelievable, because
it's insane. I mean, look, and now especially the criminal justice system. I mean, what they did, this bail reform, it's insanity. I mean, don't quote me on this number, but it's 90% of people that got arrested with a gun are let out. They're let right out.
It's really pathetic when you think about it. That's what's happening out there, and the fact that they're also hampered by the diaphragm law, which they potentially could get in trouble for doing the right thing, and also for new restrictions in regards to stop, question, and frisk. I can't imagine how much paperwork there is to fill out during a stop, question, and frisk.
Yeah, I mean, the diaphragm law, like you said, not only could they get in trouble, they can get hurt or killed.
Absolutely.
And there's the old saying on the street, as you know, probably better than I do, he who hesitates could die.
That's for sure. That's for sure. There was a video of two cops from the 2.5. I don't know if you've watched it. In fact, I'm going to see if I can pull it up. And they were really reluctant to get into it with the perp, because I'm going to show it right now if I can pull it up.
Are we talking about the shooting with the knife?
No.
Oh, that was the gun.
I'm going to show it from the beginning.
I got you.
Now you can see the officer is afraid to put his knee down on the guy's back like it needs to be done. Now, as you can see, he's emboldened, right?
See, now she pulled her gun. If I had to guess, without hearing the sound, they knew he had a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's right in that battle. Look at that. Now, again, if they know he has a gun, all bets are off.
I agree.
All bets are off. And, you know, when someone has a gun on them and they're continuing to fight like that, you know, it's one thing possessing a gun. It's bad enough. But to put on a battle like that, you know, there's a good chance they have intent to use it.
He's going to pull out the gun right now. There you go.
Oh, yeah. Look at the handle. Yeah. You know what? Great job by the officers. They got it done. They didn't get hurt. But I blame this a lot on the city council, the politicians, and some of the administration, where you know it's making cops second guess themselves. And they know the guy has a gun.
It's so ridiculous.
110%. All the necessary. I mean, at that point, they could have shot him. They could use deadly physical force.
But Walter, what I'm saying though, and I don't want to criticize those cops. They're working within the parameters that they're being restricted with, and I think they need to show that video to the city council and show the animal that they've created with this diaphragm law.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad, and unfortunately, cops are going to get hurt and/or killed, and you know, the public is also going to pay for it.
That's for sure. And you know something, it's amazing that even with all these restrictions, the NYPD is still making gun collars, which is incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. And I again, those cops did a great job. They got the gun off the perp. They didn't get hurt. Perp didn't get hurt. Everybody goes home. They got a good gun arrest.
100%.
Yeah, I agree, though. I definitely agree.
It's sad, and I feel bad for them. Walter, you know, I wanted to mention to our guests, anyone that knows Walter knows he's pretty buff, and he's always working out with weights and stuff. And Walter had a little battle with COVID a couple of weeks ago, right?
Well, it actually was in January. It first hit me, and I got hit bad. I mean, you know, the COVID. I lost my uncle who was on the job. He was a second grade detective at Transit, and he was in a veterans nursing home, and you know, he passed away from COVID. So I know it's a serious. I mean, obviously it's serious. Many cops on the job were on ventilators and so on. But you know, I took it very serious. I mean, I was I was going out to get the mail in like a spacesuit. But somehow, some way, I got it, and it hit me hard. I mean, I lost 20 pounds. I mean, total time period, it's over 2 months now. I still don't have my taste or smell back. I put some of the weight back, but obviously none of the muscle. I mean, I feel I'm looking in the video compared to the last time, and I look like I just got out of a concentration camp, God forbid. But you know what? I'm happy to be alive. It's I still have some issues, like I said. I'm going to doctors currently. I got an appointment tomorrow. But yeah, it's no joke, man. It's tough disease.
Something. It certainly is, and I'm glad that you're better now. And sometimes it could be a long road to recovery, but I know you're up to the task. Brooklyn in the rare old times. Walter is the man, a true cop's cop. He has a site beyond the line of duty dedicated to the most decorated members of the NYPD. You got big fans, Walter.
No, that's nice. You know what? I appreciate that. I get a lot of emails and a lot of people that write me through Facebook or text me or whatever, and just good words of of thanks for for the site and acknowledging them, and it gives them, like you said, a lot of cops they turn on the computer, let's see who came in with the gun, who got. So I'm honestly, to me that means the world. I do it for them, and I do it just get them out in the public.
Walter, we have a big fan of ours. Actually, they're a couple, Peter and Rachella Pranzo, and Lieutenant Peter Pranzo is a Medal of Valor winner from street crime. He was a 3-2 lieutenant, street crime, and he worked in Brooklyn. And he's a real. He has a book out called The Harlem Raiders.
Pete Pranzo. He's also a Combat Cross recipient.
Wow, I thought he was just a Medal of Valor.
No, 2-time Medal Day.
Wow.
Yeah,
Pete, now I like you even more.
Hey, good guy too. And I tell you what, he's one of my biggest supporters on the Valor page, on the Facebook NYPD Valor page.
Walter, tell the our listening audience what cops do when they make a gun collar to get recognized on your Facebook Valor page.
Well, basically, in the morning, I get up, have my coffee. I scroll through news media, social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then a lot of people direct. A boss will write me and say, "Hey, one of my guys grabbed somebody last night," and they'll send me a photo. I just do a quick blurb. Police officer so and so, if I have their names. Made a gun arrest, and I put the photo on. And that's it. I mean, that's just kind of. And I don't limit it to just gun arrests. I mean, I do a lot of rescues. Just good arrests. People want. I just did something the other day. Somebody jumped a turnstile, and turns out he was wanted for like a couple robberies, and I think he had a gun on him, and so it's just not always about guns. It's just about going beyond the line of duty, which is the name of my other my website, Beyond the Line of Duty.
Well, look, here's a picture of you from back in the day.
Yeah, I had some hair there.
And you had some hair back then, Walter.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What kind of gun is that you're holding?
That's the one in my left hand that looks like it almost looks like the old M16. That's a bullpup 12 gauge pump shotgun. The other one's a sawed-off double barrel. I believe it was a double barrel shotgun. And there's a little, I think it was a 32 or 38 revolver. That was actually an interesting story. That was like if I had to guess off the top of my head, 1988. And I got a guy coming out of a building, and sure enough, he's adjusting the gun in his waistband. I'm in uniform. I'm in a marked police van. He sees me. He runs in the building. I chase him up the stairs. He runs into an apartment. So during those days, there was rumors, quote unquote, that we would just go in and kick the door in. Right. And has that ever happened? And legally, can you do that? Yes. But this particular time, there was a lot of stuff going on in the department. So I was like, you know what? I got a man contained in an apartment. I got on the radio. I called for emergency service. I called for the supervisor. And before you know it, I mean, aviation was there. The news was there. And then, long story short, the apartment he goes into, he goes up a fire escape into another apartment. So we end up going into the apartment, and he changed his clothes. So now he's sitting on the floor with like 7 guys. They all look similar, all around the same age. And I'm like, I'm talking to them, and no one spoke English. And sure enough, I knew it was the guy, but I said, let me just, make positive it was him.
Right.
And I checked everybody's chest. And again, I knew it was the guy. I knew it was. He was sweating. His hands were dirty from climbing the fire escape. I positively identified him. But there's always you want that 1,000,000%. And sure enough, his heart was coming through his chest. And then when I grabbed, the other people eventually said, hey, that this is, don't, we're just like a working family, and this guy came budging through our window.
That's the old trick. Aaron Rodriguez,
it was pretty neat.
Aaron Rodriguez, thank you so much for that $20 super chat. Peter Pranzo, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. You enable us to keep doing this show. Hello, Scott Wagner, MC's Audio, Oscar Ferrafino. He's becoming a big fan. Joan Guerrero, Brooklyn and the Rare Old Times, Christopher Strom, my good buddy. Stephen Revo Gates, Miss Angela Lapp, 3233. Cat in the Hat, she's back. Good to see you, Cat in the Hat. Joey Brooklyn, what up, buddy? How you doing? Great to see all you guys here. MC's Audio, everyone welcome. Thank you so much. We have one of the really true, unselfish members of the service. And I got to admit, he's a buff. He's a bit of a buff, but he's celebrating fellow cops and making this job something really proud to be part of. And that's one of the things that I'm so happy that Walter does this, because he's also a Medal of Honor and Valor, a historian. He knows more about the NYPD medals than the police department does. You want to give us a little piece of history on some of the medals, Walt?
Well, yeah. I mean, let's see. I mean, NYPD has an annual medal day every year. It originally, well, I won't say originally, but in recent years, there's the highest medal is the Medal of Honor. The second after that is the Combat Cross, Medal for Valor. They have a medal that's not really awarded too often. It's called the Purple Shield, and that's a medal that they came up with for cops that were seriously injured in the line of duty, more so like other than getting shot. So car accidents, heart attacks, things, somebody taking action during police, official police duties, and they either life-threatening or crippling, debilitating injuries and or death. And then they have, after 9/11, they started awarding a medal called the Distinguished Service Medal, which is awarded to officers that have passed away from sickness, from illness related to 9/11. And unfortunately, I mean, when that medal was first awarded, I think it was 2005. Don't quote me on that off the top of my head. Maybe there was like 5-6 medals awarded. Now there's like 30-40 awarded every year.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're losing. I mean, we lost 23 police officers, detectives and bosses total that were NYPD that died during 9/11. They were awarded the Medal of Honor. And then since then, I mean, it's got to be, God, I should know this off the top of my head, 300 or 400, give or take, that have passed away since 9/11, from, cancer-related or heart-related issues.
Yeah, it's really tragic. In fact, I guess when you get to my age, and I'm a little older than you, a lot of the people that you worked with start to die, either from natural causes or, in our case, some 9/11 cancer. I'd like to just give a shout out to a member of the service who recently passed away. Great guy, Mike Gugliamoni, who finished his career as a detective in the 19th Squad. There wasn't a nicer guy on this job that I ever met. And he passed away a couple of weeks ago. I just want to shout out to all of his friends and his family, and just that we appreciated him. He's a great man. As
we say, until Valhalla, may he rest in peace.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's unfortunate that we're losing so many. And then, there's a lot of people that are just, that may not pass, but are sick. I'm sure dozens upon dozens that who doesn't have acid reflux, respiratory, just so many different things are popping up. And then you throw in the COVID on top of it, and that's,
Well, it's funny. I'm getting my second shot this Saturday for at the Javits Center for the COVID. And I always thought that right out of the box, they should have taken care of all members of the service, retired, and especially 9/11 first responders.
I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but the department is actually doing that. They set it up at Rodman's neck.
Yeah, I know. I got it before that, though.
I got you.
Yeah, so, yeah, but I thought that they should have had that going right out of the box, But there's a lot of politics to it, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I live up in, I'm a little bit north of the city. I'm up in Dutchess. And from what I understand, there's not many places that have it up here. And I don't know this officially, but whoever runs the Dutchess County or whatever, I guess, had a tiff with Cuomo, and I think they're holding up some of the vaccines. I mean, that's That's criminal.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, but I don't know if you could put how they could prove that or if it's even true or whatever. But you know, it's again, it's sad stuff.
Walt, I know that people that don't know you, they want to hear a little bit more about your police career in the 4-4 precinct, and tell us like what the 4-4 precinct was like back in.
4-6.
Oh, I thought you were a 4-4 guy.
No, 4-6. I was in they call it the Alamo.
Okay.
We covered 1.2 square miles, and they used to call it the most dangerous mile in America. At one point, we had almost 100 homicides in a year in 1 square mile. Our precinct, when I first got there, I got there in '87. At one point, we had over 400 police officers on the 3 tours, you know, the 8 to 4, 4 to 12, and the midnights, to cover 1 square mile. Now, that's not counting the specialized units, narcotics, and street crime, and all the other units, you know, emergency service. That's just precinct level personnel, 400 people to cover 1 square mile.
Wow.
Yeah. We had some famous and some infamous cases that took place. And I don't know if you remember, the viewers remember the Eleanor Bumpers case.
Yes.
There was an emotionally disturbed woman. She happened to be like 300 pounds, and she had a just outrageous butcher knife, like kitchen knife. And the cops went there. They went there, and eventually she went to go stab a cop, and they shot her. And that was Stephen Sullivan, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think they locked him up, and he went through hell. And I mean, in reality, I mean, it's unfortunate somebody's life had to be taken, but again, that happened in the 4-6.
You know, that was an incident that totally rewrote the response to EDPs.
That changed it.
The big term was isolate and contain, right? And for our fans that are non-police, EDP stands for emotionally disturbed person. I know sometimes non-police personnel think we speak in another language with all the policeisms, the copisms.
We got to catch ourselves and do some translations, you know?
Yeah. Walt, can I just do one more shout out? The gentleman from Brooklyn just reminded me, Brooklyn in the rare old times, Tim Motto from the 2-8 precinct just passed away the other day. And he was a big champion of getting to the bottom of the Phil Cardillo case and the Moss case.
In Harlem,
Yeah, and so we actually had Randy Jurgensen on this podcast.
He's a Medal of Valor recipient.
That's right. He wrote The Circle of Six. So I just wanted.
Good book.
So I wanted to shout out to Tim Motto, right? I'm sorry, and as I said, he was a big champion of the Cardillo. So may he rest in peace.
Yes, no doubt. But yeah, 4-6. We had another famous case was Larry Davis. He shot 5 cops, and he went.
You know, we had Rick Martinez on the show.
Oh yeah, Combat Cross recipient.
Rick Martinez was a superhero in that case. He saved the lives of many ESU cops. Gaspar R., thank you so much for the 1999 super sticker. I really appreciate this, you guys. Very much so. Yeah, I mean, there was some crazy stuff that happened in the 4-6, right? Didn't they have that big shootout on the concourse where there was about 150 shots fired?
That at the time, that was the most shots fired in the history of the NYPD, recorded at one incident. And there was actually a lot more shots fired. What happened with that was there was some crazed crackhead. That's when that was like, I think in 87 or 86. Or maybe 85. I don't know. It was in the mid 80s, 85, 80, some crackhead. What he did was he went into a building and he ripped off a drug dealer, pulled a gun on him. And then as people were coming in to buy crack, he would just rob them. So the crackheads were coming out, calling up, yeah, there's a guy with a gun just robbed us. So when the cops came, he ended up running the building and he ran out the building. He ran by and then finally somebody, recognized the description, and there was a running gun battle in the Grand Concourse. I think it was like 150.
I saw the video to that, and luckily the cops involved in it didn't shoot each other, because there were so many
jumping
shots.
over. I mean, you talk about horrible. That was another thing that changed the job with tactics, and unfortunately, I hate to say it, and the job has come a long way since then. But back in those days, it was always reactionary. like the Eleanor Bumpers. They didn't like the way it was. Obviously, they didn't, quote unquote, like the way it was handled. So they reacted. They changed the procedure. And I guess you could always get better as time goes on. But in reality, it should be proactive. Let's make things better now before it's an questionable or an oops or. But yeah, that changed a few things with the.
Walt. I wanted to shout out Scotty Wagner, a housing cop, great detective. He wanted to shout out to the 4-6 housing cops, and yeah, we certainly couldn't do the job without the backup of NYPD housing. And Kerry Schacht, I recognize his name. I hope I pronounced his last name. I know he's a highly decorated member of the service.
Kerry's he was awarded the Medal of Honor. He got his first check. I think he was still in training, the academy type thing. And he got his first check, and he goes to the bank to cash the check. And it turned out it was 3 perps. He gets into a gun battle with 2 of them. A bit wild chase. They get the car, they get the perps, they recover the money, and they had like 7 sticks of dynamite in the car.
Wow.
So Kerry was awarded at the time, it was before the merge, housing was separate. They had a separate medal day. He was awarded their Medal of Honor, and he's also a Medal for Valor recipient from housing for a fire rescue. And he's a good guy. And he's a veteran.
I'll tell you something that all of these guys, all these heroes, they really appreciate what you do, Walt. And so do I,
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. To me, that's, that makes it all worth it,
Hot lunch. I remember that term, hot lunch. That was great for our fans out there. When you did a car stop and one of the occupants had a gun or you spotted a gun in the car, you wouldn't yell gun. You would say hot lunch, because if you yelled gun, the rest of the occupants of the car would run all different ways.
I got a good story. I got a good story pertaining to that. So I worked, before I retired, my last partner was a lieutenant, and he's still on the job. Great guy and a great cop. But he was in street crime for a while. So they used that term hot lunch. And as you said, you use it so you don't raise up the suspicions of the bad guy, that they know that they have a gun.
Right.
So when we first started working together, I'm like, I'm not using that term. That's a hot lunch. I'm like, so down the road, we made a few arrests together, whatever. So one day we grab a guy and I end up finding the gun, just the bad guy had the gun. He happened to be closer to me that I found the gun. And I go to the lieutenant and I'm like, okay, say, when we're done with this, why don't we go get us a nice hot lunch? I used his thing. So he's looking at me. He's like, come on, we just ate. And I'm like, no. Let's go for a nice hot lunch, And I had to say it like 3 times. I wish I could have had it on video. And he jumped up. He's like, really? And he grabbed the other guy and he cuffed him up, and it was pretty funny.
I remember Lieutenant Chalice from Street Crime taught me that term. Hot lunch.
Oh, okay. Like I said, I wasn't a fan of it, but the one time I used it, because we were making arrests all along and not using that term,
Right.
And it was pretty funny.
Michael Morsicilli, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Highly appreciated. Christopher Strom, you're the man. I'm seeing you. Christopher Strom has a book called Brooklyn to Baghdad, and it just made it in the top 10 or top 20 of books about the Iraq War.
Wow, so congratulations. That's pretty cool.
And he's hired as, how you can go on the circuit as a speaker?
Right.
He was hired to do that. So he's been on our show a couple of times. He's a great guy, and he's doing really well with his book.
That's good to hear.
It's always good to have other members of the service doing well, right?
I you know what? I love to hear stories of success. When someone writes a book or someone gets into movies or gets to do, either way, it's great. There's life after the job.
100%. 100%. You want to tell us, I know you love telling war stories. You want to tell a story about how you were shot at from the roof of university?
Oh, this is it. So I was on a foot post. This is classic. I'm on a foot post, and sometimes when you're on a foot post, you only cover like 1 block. And if the drug dealers know you're out there, they're going to just go around the corner. So it's hard to make an arrest, So I end up going, I had a sector car pick me up. I'm like, hey, do me a favor, give me a ride. And I went off post to try to make an arrest. So this is early in my career. I only had about a year or so on. And we're all in uniform. And so we pull up. We're on University Avenue, and another sector car pulls up with us, and they're talking with the other car. And I'm like, guys, I don't have much time. I want to go lock someone up. So all of a sudden, I hear boom, boom, boom. I hear shots fired. So I'm like, hey, you hear that? Shots fired. And they're like, I'm just sitting in the back seat, and they're like, oh, Mr. Buff, you're hearing things. You got that. I'm like, boom, boom. I hear a couple more shots. So a guy comes up to the car and is like, officer, and he lifts his arm up. He goes, I just got shot. And it was almost unbelievable. He was literally standing 2 car lengths away from us, like waiting across the street. And he got so he ends up falling over on the floor. So I jump out, I look up, and there's it had to be, I don't know, a couple buildings over. So it wasn't far, but it wasn't close. Right. And there's a kid leaning off the roof with a rifle, and he blows out the car window next to me. They were shooting at us, but they thank God their aim wasn't that great, or they would, I don't know, just trying to scare us. But it did. So we end up running in the building. I put it over the radio. We big chase, go across the rooftops. They get stuck on the roof, and the kid's screaming, "I'll shoot you! I'll shoot you!" So I'm like, okay, we're waiting for issue. So finally, I boom the door. They go down a fire escape. I end up getting 5 of the kids that were on the roof. I got all 5 of their families, because they were juveniles, to get them to make admissions of guilt. Because I gained their confidence. I was telling them, listen, you want them to go for attempted murder, or you want them to go, I recovered the gun. I recovered all the spent rounds that were fired. I recovered extra ammunition. The cop that was in the car is like, yeah, I'm going to take this. I'm like, what do you mean you're going to take this? You didn't even think it was shots fired. I caught the kids. I found the gun. He's like, and back then, you remember, you had certain, for the non-cops out there, you had sectors. Right. The sector was an area that covered, 4 or 5 blocks, and you were technically assigned to that sector. So if any call came over, you had to pick up that call if you weren't busy. So if it was an arrest situation, it was your sector, you had to take, or you would take the arrest. And sure enough, he took the arrest.
Oh,
and I didn't get it.
You got shafted because you were a rookie,
No, he was a rookie too. It was just that, because then his boss came over and they were like, all right, what were you doing in the car? I was supposed to be on the foot post, 10 blocks away. So I was off post. It was.
Oh, so you got to take a complaint. So you gave
which
up
I would have gladly taken. I mean, it was a great arrest, but and then Walter, we got
Walter. Scotty Wagner asked if you remember the murder of an off-duty police officer from the 4-3 killed in the projects in the 4-6.
Fontanez, right?
Fontanez.
Hector Fontanez, yeah.
He's saying his name was Serrano. Was it Hector
Anthony Serrano? Yeah, Fontanez was 4-7. All right. Okay. Yes. Actually, yeah. I'm trying to think. Oh man, I'm getting old. The block.
He's saying Hilario Serrano shot and killed in January of 1992. Some guys tried to rob him and his girlfriend, and a shootout erupted. He died trying to protect his girlfriend, and she survived.
Yeah. I'm trying to. Not T-Bat. It'll come to me. Yeah. Again, I'm getting old, but yeah, I do. I do remember it.
Someone said that you should be eating some kielbasa and have some cold beer.
I can't taste it, so it don't matter. And right now with the drinking, I'm kind of laying low. I got some blood work done, and I still have some things off in my blood. So right now, I'm just kind of drinking a lot of water. And
well, you're a fighter. You'll come back, man. You'll come back. You gotta keep the Medal of Valor page going. Keep
no doubt. But yeah, the 4-6 was a. Hey, we had our. I give you back in the day, we had it was a big corruption scandal, and part of the Monaghan Commission was set up to investigate the corruption, and a bunch of it was stemming from the 4-6. We had 2 cops, Bernie Cawley and Tommy Bogart, and they were running amok, corruption wise, and unfortunately, the unit they were in was called the Band Unit, Bronx Anti-Narcotics Drive. And they worked I was in the band unit, which was supposedly like a stepping stone for a career move.
Yeah. What instrument did you play?
I was the, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to leave that one alone.
All right.
But it stood for Bronx Anti-Narcotics Drive. And it was basically, it was uniform, and you kind of just went out and did drug arrests and try to, get the guns or whatever like that. And I tell you what, my first month in the unit, in uniform in a marked van, I made with my partner 22 arrests, 11 gun collars.
Wow.
In my first month in the band unit. But anyway, get back to the Bernie Corley and Tommy Bogart. So after that, there was a lot of, again, reaction. Oh, let's get rid of the band unit and so I happened to make an arrest. I locked up they get a call, some type of radio run in a building. We get there first. A guy's coming out with a gun in his waist, big guy. And you talk about this story is going to go into a million different directions. A movie could be made on this story. I get the guy. He's got a gun. I mean, the guy was looking up at the guy. He's like 6'4". I have my gun in his stomach. I'm like, get on your knees. And he starts calling me Duke. He's like, you remember me? And I'm thinking, like, is this guy a cop? Because that was like my nickname when I first. Because I used to work in corrections. I worked at Rikers Island for a year before I came on NYPD.
Well, don't tell me he was a former client.
He was an inmate at Rikers Island. And when I used to, like with inmates, I'm not going to remember names because I would work in a dorm, which would house 60, 70, 80 inmates. So I used to call everybody Duke. I'm like, Duke, like every inmate was Dukes. And then eventually people started calling me Duke. Right. So it turns out he's one of the inmates from Rikers Island. So I'm like, all right. I cuff him up. I'm like, so now I hear screaming in the building. I'm thinking he just shot somebody. So we go in, and I go up to an apartment, second floor, third floor, and I hear yelling. I knock on the door, and this big guy comes out, big, like crazed looking. And as he opens the door, he's thinking it's the guy with the gun coming back, who they must have had an argument. Behind him is a whole like drug factory. There's bags of crack and scales and money and. So now he tries to close the door, but usually they try to go back in. But he was so far out, he came and tried to close the door behind him. So I end up locking him up. I end up locking up he had a female in the apartment. And we end up getting a whole like A1 felony weight of, a big bag of crack and money and bullets. And well, what happens is now the job wants to do an investigation. Like why, how did we make all these arrests? And there was, put us through hell. The guy's name, and anybody watching this, you get bored, you can Google this. The guy's name was Andre Page, was the bad guy with the A1 felony weight. Turns out they dropped the charges on him because there was a pending allegation against me because they didn't like the way the paperwork was done. They thought something was funny. So the NYPD let an A1 felony go, okay, through the DA's office. This guy went on to commit 11 homicides.
Wow.
Now, I know that it sounds preposterous, but you can Google it. Andre Page.
Back in the day, those things could happen, He went out and
he was a drug enforcer. So they actually did a documentary on the guy. It was on like one of these cable shows. One night I was watching, it was called The Shadow of a Kingpin. And it was about his boss. And then one night I'm watching, I'm like, oh, this looks interesting. And they're mentioning the drug deal, and they're like, his hitman, Andre Page. I'm like, that's my guy, It was
that's
just
the
a
guy who
wild
called
twist.
me Duke.
Yeah, it was just a wild twist to the story. And originally when it went to IAB, the lieutenant that was investigating me, after the investigation, he said, listen, officer, no hard feelings here. Meanwhile, you're looking to arrest me. He goes, look, I'm just doing my job. I said, listen, I respect your rank and I respect the job you do. I says, but you just got the wrong guy. I says, don't try to tie me in with these bad guys. I'm out here, I'm doing this for the overtime and the guts and the glory and, just doing the right thing for the city of New York. I mean, as corny as it may sound, but, cops do that. I mean, again, cops get all this bad press, but in reality, they're going out there taking risks in neighborhoods that are not theirs to clean it up, to make it better for the good people. That's one thing that you don't hear a lot. You
absolutely don't, and that's so true.
They're trying. I don't know if it's passed yet, but I think they're trying to make you have to be a resident of New York City to be a police officer now in the NYPD. And I get what they're trying to do, but in reality, there's nothing wrong with living outside of the city. And I mean, I grew up in the Bronx. I originally grew up in the 4-5, which was at the time a decent neighborhood, but we have a there's a young cop now that's in what they call, it's not anti-crime anymore, but I mean, they're sending me guns every other day, that they're taking, which was unheard of in the 4-5. That was just like the only crimes were there was like the mob,
Right.
you never heard about them, it wasn't like they were getting locked up, and it was.
Walter, I want to show the page, you Beyond the Line of Duty page. And if you could see that there, that's, tell our audience what they're looking at.
All right. So give or take about 15 years ago, I started, you always heard on the news, you always heard a lot of people making the claim, most decorated cop of the NYPD. There was a cop that wrote a book. He said he was the 5th most and the 11th most. So I actually said, okay, who is or was the most decorated police officer of the NYPD? So I started, I was going down to the New York archives. I attend Medal Day every year, and I started composing. This is when the early stages of the internet, so there wasn't a ton of information out there. And I started doing research on Medal Day of the NYPD, and then highly decorated, or earlier when you introduced me, you said I was one of the highest decorated. The actual term would be most decorated. So it's the amount of medals, not the higher medals, because I was never at Medal Day. So it's just the amount of medals, that I had a lot of. So I started the webpage, Beyond the Line of Duty, and I dedicated it to, again, similar to the NYPD Valor page, of highly decorated cops that were at Medal Day and or a lot of medals. So that's kind of, the page is a little bit outdated. The original, I did it through Yahoo, which again, I'm dating myself there. I need to update it. But if you click on the page, it's beyondthelineofduty.com. I own the rights to that and .net. And you click on, it's pretty easy to navigate. On the top, there's a bar, and you can hit heroes, and then you can pull up stories or just photos of cops that have been, very active in the NYPD. And then I also give a history of the medals. And
that's tremendous, because, it's almost, when you think about it, it's almost inexcusable that there's no one on the NYPD that has that takes care of that. There's the top medals on the NYPD from your page.
Yeah, and that's all the breast bars and if you click, you could actually click them, and it'll give you the criteria for the medal. Again, the site's a little outdated, but I used to have more on the About Me and the dedication page. And again, at the top, the main thing is you click the heroes, and then it opens up in categories by rank. And you can go down and click. I dedicate a bunch of pages to emergency service, which is the NYPD's version of, quote unquote, everybody knows the term SWAT. We have ESU.
You never call our ESU SWAT, because that's a California thing.
They want to be called. No, listen, you know what?
They want to be called ESU because they're proud to be ESU. They don't want to be known as SWAT.
Hey, listen, when people get in trouble, they call the cops. When cops get in trouble, they call ESU.
I love that limerick. I'm glad I didn't have to do it.
No, you know what? I'll tell you another thing. Speaking of medals and highly decorated, years ago, a lot of people, and even today, people say, well, ESU, no matter what they do, they get a high medal, And I was fortunate enough to cross the Verrazano Bridge. I got to climb the Verrazano Bridge with ESU. And I'll tell you what, you go up, climb that bridge, and pull somebody down, you deserve a high medal. And I don't care if you do it once a day, twice a day, you deserve a high medal. So you know what? I tell people, hey, don't be jealous, be their friends. And
Walt, that's for sure. When I looked at the picture of the guys climbing it, and I looked down, and I was like, oh my God, I wouldn't do that for anything.
It's funny, when I actually did it, when I climbed up, the scariest part, I thought at least, was we just stopped on the bridge. Like, there wasn't like they set up, they do it very safe. They spare no, they put out, they have vehicles, before and behind. They put out all sorts of, messages that, we're doing a training thing so just people don't get alarmed. But when I got out and they put the ladder, like you go up the ladder first to get to the cable that you actually walk on. And that climbing the ladder was like the scariest part, even though you have somebody behind you, you have somebody up top, you're always clipped in. It's always, but you know what? I have nothing but admiration. I actually, after 9/11, I actually almost went to ESU. I was slated to go into the next group of training. I actually, a good friend of mine, I called up and I said, look, I never asked for anything. And I'm like, hey, I'd like to be considered for your issue. And I had the time and I had the record to be able to go. And we got the call back saying, okay, you're in the next group. But I had some personal family issues at the time and I couldn't do the hours. I couldn't do the tour changes. And so I never got to go. But
you never got to be an E-man.
You know what? I actually went. They have a Remembrance Day. It's called REMA, and they have it. It's at Floyd Bennett Field, and I actually went out there. You talk about buffs. I went out there just to meet E-men. And these were guys from like the 70s, and I met a bunch of really, again, for my website and just to get information and be part of it. It was pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Well, you know something, Walt, there's no bigger buff than you, and everyone on this department really appreciates what the hell you do. I can't believe that you've kept it going for so many years because it's really highly appreciated. Duty Ron, thank you so much for the $10 super sticker. You're the man. Welcome to the show. Duty Ron has a great podcast himself, and Walt, you should go on his show. In fact, when he's listening to this, I'm sure he's going to ask me for your
have his people call my people.
Yeah, that's right. Brooklyn and the Rare Old Times, thank you so much for the 1999 super sticker. It's so great. Thank you so much. And hi at Bill Gannon, but Bill Gannon was from Dragnet. My last name is Cannon, but thank you very much. I don't mind being called Bill Gannon, Sergeant Bill Gannon from Dragnet. That was a hell of a great show, right?
Hey, while you're giving some shout-outs, I'm going to give a couple shout-outs if that's okay.
Absolutely.
There's two names I'd like to mention. There's one is a Lieutenant Richie Bergen. I believe his wife's a big fan of the show. I believe he's watching the show tonight. If not, he'll see the video, the rerun of it. Richie Bergen was originally a Brooklyn guy, a 6'7" cop. He worked with Mike Heinrichs, who you've had on the show a few times.
Mike Heinrichs is the best, man. I've had him on the real crime portion of the show too.
Yeah,
he's got some great stories.
You know what? Yeah, he is. But Richie was he was involved in a bunch of shootings. Richie was one of the most decorated cops. He was awarded 3 medals for valor at Medal Day, and he's only one of 7 officers in the history of the NYPD to go to Medal Day for 3 times or more. So Richie Bergen retired recently within the last year. A legend, and there's a guy, maybe you should think about getting him on the show.
You know something? I actually read about him. He retired as a lieutenant, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
No, I had written his name down, and I had intended on asking him, but you know what? It's tough, and I'm not complaining, but I do all the booking for this show as well as I produce it and everything, and so it's a lot of work, believe it or not, and. It's because we do Mondays and Thursdays. So I got to book someone ahead of time.
Right.
And it's tough. I want to keep the quality of guests to the highest level, Well,
Richie's very articulate. He's a great cop and he's a good guy. And again, I want to congratulate him on his retirement. And I'm going to throw another name at you that, and there'll be 2 parts to this story. The NYPD they just started, I believe, last week, a database where you can go on. It's nypd.org, and you can go online and actually look at all the current. It doesn't have retirees, but it has all the current, whatever it is, 35,000 plus members of the service, all the way up to chief of the department. And you could get like a little bio of them. So you can get like what ranks they held, when they were appointed, their medals, and how many arrests they made, and also their complaints, which, and so you talk about nutty, Buffy, or very into my passion for this subject. I actually scrolled through every single name on that list. And one name I didn't see, and I'd like to give a shout out, is a lieutenant that just recently retired because he wasn't on the list. His name's Chris Devaney. And Chris Devaney was the most decorated officer currently of the NYPD. Chris had a total of 419 awards from the NYPD.
Wow.
Excellent police duty, which is the first medal. I hate to use the term lowest, but usually it's for a gun arrest. Chris holds the record for the department for 258 excellent police duty medals.
Wow.
and he recently retired. I think he had some health issues. I don't know the whole story, but you want to talk about a legend. And the way I met him was a few years ago. I went to a funeral. As I was retired, I just attended the funeral, and I'm in the crowd, and everybody, I'm in a suit, and everybody's in uniform. And I look up, and I see the numbers on his medals, and I'm like, what? And he's looking at me like, who's this nut job, And then eventually, somebody knew somebody that knew somebody that put me in touch with him. He's a really good guy. I think he's got his son on the job. Actually, two sons. One works down, I think, in North Carolina, and the other one's on the NYPD. But Chris Devaney, great guy. Everybody should know his name in the NYPD. And again, 400 and over 4. He probably would have had more, but he stopped at 419 medals through the department.
Walter, what you do is so damn important. I mean, you're a historian. Cat in the Hat, thank you so much for that $9.99 super sticker. Some of the people that I'm seeing in the chat tonight, thank you so much for coming by the show. I want to post this up there because these guys, two of them I know pretty well. And 3-2 anti-crime, legends. To the left, Tommy Kennedy. In the middle of that picture, Terry McGee. And to the right, Tommy Barrett. And all three of them outstanding cops. And I know you celebrated them on your site. That's why I'm showing this one.
Side note, interesting you brought him up. Terry McGee, the guy Andre Page, Terry McGee actually locked him up in the 3-2. And he got him like he was actually going to do a hit. He locked up Andre Page. I think he had a bulletproof vest on and a gun with a silencer, which everyone watching this show knows it's very, very rare to get a silencer, as an arrest in the NYPD. It's not a common. There's two things that are not common in the NYPD. I mean, there's quite a few things, but two things when it comes gun arrests are silencers and fully automatic, a machine gun where you pull the trigger and it, like in the movies, it shoots 30 rounds in a few seconds.
Right.
Not very common. And Terry McGee locked up Andre Page with a gun with a silencer. He was actually going to do a hit. But Terry McGee, all three of them are legends. But Terry, for the viewers that don't know, he was involved. He was doing some terrorist investigative work overseas, and he was involved in an accident in the water, and it left him, with a serious physical injury. And he's still on the job today. Matter of fact, Terry McGee did the investigation, and actually for all his work, I believe it was Bin Laden. The terrorist, Osama bin Laden,
right,
locked up like his nephew or his son or something like that for terrorist related. Think about it. I mean, nothing but kudos to that team and Terry McGee, especially.
Terry McGee. I had the in 2000. I'm losing my mind. 1997. I was transferred from the 2-4 RIP unit to the 2-3 RIP. And at first I wasn't happy about it. Then I got to the 2-3. It was like having the World Series New York Yankees, that RIP. I had 12 detectives that were all hungry. Some of the guys were making, double figures arrests every month. Terry McGee was one of them. Patty Porteous, Richie Pop. I'm gonna forget people, and people are gonna curse me out. But the whole unit were filled with superstars. Kurt Lindell, Mike Murphy. It was just a great. Terry McGee actually was a former. Scott was saying he was an anti-crime cop, but he was a 3-2 anti-crime cop, and he was a 2-3 RIP cop and detective.
Here's a great story. I'm going to make a long story short, but my partner and I were doing midnights, and we end up making a crazy gun arrest. The guy had like a little machine gun pistol, and he was going to do a hit, and we caught him running through the street with the gun, and we almost shot him, and it got into a brutal battle or whatever. So we sustained some minor injuries, line of duty, making the arrest, and naturally you go sick, because down the road, if you hurt your knee or something like that, you have to document it. So we went sick, and with the NYPD, once you go sick for more than 2 days, you have to go see the district surgeon. You have to go see an NYPD doctor, basically. and they deem if you're fit for duty or you need more time off. So I'm in the 50 precinct, the district, the surgeon headquarters or whatever they call it, and I'm reading the newspaper, and I'm reading a story about a cop goes to stop a car, guy gets out and had a gun, shoots the cop, the bullet goes through his belt, hits him in the stomach. The cop chases down the guy that just shot him. After being shot, handcuffs him, place him under arrest. That was Terry McGee.
Yeah.
And I'm reading this story in the paper, and I'm like, this is incredible. Wow, what a hero. And all of a sudden, my partner goes, you know who that guy is? And I go, never met him in my life. He goes, you know who that guy is? I said, listen, I don't know who he is. And God is my witness. He goes, well, put down the paper. He's sitting right in front of you. It was right after he got shot. I put the paper down. It's Terry McGee sitting across. I go, what are you doing here? I forgot what he said. He goes, I have 4 kids or 5 kids. He goes, I got to get back. I need the overtime. I go, you just got shot. And we became friends after that. And then I was involved in a shootout, semi around that same time. And the PBA honored us. The PBA has an award, a very prestigious award, PBA Cop of the Month. And I was awarded the PBA Cop of the Month, and so was Terry McGee, the same dinner. So we sat at the same table together. And then, another time I was honored by the Shields, and coincidentally, I no way I could even put my name next to his, but he was getting honored, so we always remained in touch. And a few years ago, the Pope came down to Ground Zero to bless, the Ground Zero, the pools. Right. And I was the first one there. I won like a lottery type thing through the World Trade Center Foundation. They only had a certain amount of people that can go. So I ended up getting there like 3 a.m. I was like the second person there. So when I got in, I was the first person to be at the fence line to where the Pope came to bless the ground, the Ground Zero. So the World Trade Center monument. I shouldn't even say Ground Zero. Uh-huh. So all of us, like a lot of people were using connections to get up to, get closer to the Pope. So, a few people were, passing. So somebody was passing through, like, all right, make a hole, let him through. And who is it? It was a cop with Terry McGee. And I said to myself, I was so heartwarming. And he's, hey, what's up? And, we took a photo together. And I was like, in my heart, I'm like, if anybody gets to meet the Pope, I hope he does. And sure enough, the Pope came over and blessed him. That's and it fantastic. Was, anybody deserved it. Terry McGee did.
That's fantastic. What a great story that is, man.
Yeah. Cool story.
It's Walt. I know we're at close to an hour, but I want to just keep going a little bit because I know you had some stories that you wanted to tell, and I think we should probably, because we're honoring people, why don't we keep doing that and honor Police Officer Gary Pico?
Back again. I'm bad with numbers. I'm going to say, I think it was 88 or 89. No, it was 1989. Yeah, 1989. It was like my first week of midnights. I just went to steady midnights, and I was in uniform, and we were parked in the car, and it was quiet. The radio was quiet, and the 4-6 used to border with the 5-2 precinct. And although we actually connected, we were on different radio frequencies. And so something could be happening right across the street from you, but it won't come over your radio. So to explain to the viewers that aren't police officers, so our central radio, they're all in the same building. So the 5-2's dispatcher would actually have to turn around to the 4-6 precinct's dispatcher if a heavy job came over, and they would relay the message to them, and they would give it to us. So a call came over, they would call it unconfirmed shots fired in the 5-2. So I'm like, okay, that could be close to us, it could be far. It's right around the corner from me. And I'm like, that's impossible. I didn't hear shots. Right. So I put myself that I'm pulling up. As we pull up to the location, cop comes running out of the bushes, scared the hell out of me. It's like, 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, they stole my car. And I'm like, they stole your car? What happened was the 5-2 in uniform stopped the car. And there was 3 bad guys in the car with guns, came out shooting and got in a gun battle with the 5-2 cops. They stole the 5-2 car's police car, as crazy as it may sound. And so the cop told me, so I put it over the radio. I said, listen, we're looking for, a marked police vehicle with the back window shot out. So no sooner as I put that over, 10 blocks away, another car comes over. And from the 4-6, and they say, hey, we got the car in sight. We're chasing them. So now as they're putting it over, and this is not the location, but you'll understand what I'm trying to say. They put it over. We're on 190 Street, 195 Street, 203rd. Like, so they're going 100 miles an hour. And then they go, we lost them. So everyone, you're listening to the radio, like, how could you lose a marked police car? Well, then another car comes over and says, Central, we have the car in sight. We're on 185 Street. And the other car goes, I lost them 30 blocks away. That's impossible. So the second car goes, shut the F up. I'm chasing a cop car with a, how many broken window cop cars are there, So now we all get into the chase. The chase is going up and down, I think it was Jerome, and then it eventually went to the Grand Concourse. Well, during the chase, Gary Pico was he was in a marked police housing vehicle. Him and his partner, they were driving down the concourse, and basically an ambulance was involved, and somehow they made contact and causing the housing RMP to crash into a pole. And at the time, my squad sergeant, who was a Vietnam veteran, good guy, this guy Gil Pelez, real squared away guy, really good guy. He was the first on the scene to that. So now we're still chasing this 3 bad guys with guns who stole a police vehicle. Now Gary Pico's car crashed. Gary went through the window and he died from his injuries. So the sergeant was on the scene. He's the first there to see this. He's calling off the chase. So in the NYPD, they don't, for various reasons, they don't like police chases because the risk of hitting someone could be sometimes outweigh what the person's wanted for. Well, he's trying to call off the chase because, he's like almost in tears seeing, a cop either dying or dead at his feet. And then, so eventually the car we're chasing crashes. So the first car that was behind them crashes into them. The second car that was behind them crashes into them. The third car, now I'm like 5th or 6th in line. The third car veers away from crashing, but takes off the cop's door. It was like out of a movie scene. And then finally, I was driving. I stood on the brake with my whole body weight, standing in the car, screeching that, and I just stopped like an inch away from crashing. And we end up catching, they caught all 3 perps. But yeah, I was the first on the scene for that with that whole chase.
Like Walt, what you say, it's so true, is that some of the most dangerous things, I think cops get hurt more in vehicle accidents than they do by gunfire.
Statistically, more cops get killed in auto accidents.
Yeah, because, and being a patrol supervisor, I know, like, when you call off a chase, all you hear over the radio is pussy, asshole.
Well, I'm glad you said it, because that's what was going on that night, not knowing that a cop died.
Right.
So yeah, that was a tough, again, working a night that, police, it's not like we're in the military where people get killed all the time. It's not many cops work during a time where, another police officer is killed, or, you're part of it, or you have an intricate part of the chase. And, that was a tough one.
Yeah, now, something that's, you always, for some reason, remember the cops who were killed in the line of duty. It just stays with you forever, because you can't imagine just how horrible that is. In our time on the job, like Russell Timoshenko, the officer that was just killed from the 2-3 a couple of years ago. Horrible, horrible. And thank God that the investigators on the NYPD are so good that we always catch these guys.
I tell you, I was never a detective, but I am in awe and nothing but admiration for many of the NYPD detectives. The cases they solve, and you're like, how did they even know it's just stuff that I didn't do a lot of investigatory, police work. I did the street work, and I just amazed at some of the stuff that they solve.
Yeah, investigation, for those out there that don't know how the detectives do it, it used to be almost considered like magic. How did they do that? How did they know that? And I always tell people, because I used to teach criminal justice in college, that, investigation is an art and a science. And, when you use those two things together and you have great people doing the work, it's tough to beat,
And it's a lot of luck too.
There's always luck involved,
I know.
When you work 7 days a week, 14, 16 hours a day, then you make your own luck, right?
Yeah.
Diane Wilson, thank you so much for that $1.49. $1. No, it's actually $1.49. I'm saying dollar. It's pounds. So you must be from the other side, across the pound, Diane Wilson. Thank you so much. Across the pond. Our fans are coming from all over the place because Duty Ron has turned a lot of his fans onto our show, and they're coming to see us. And I appreciate Duty Ron. Thank you so much. Scotty Wagner, was that your first homicide, Gary Pico? It happened on May 24th, 1988, according to the live chat here. It's a long time ago.
I thought it was 89, but again, yeah. Was that my first homicide?
No, Scotty Wagner. He was a housing investigator.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I went down to I was one of the only, if I remember correctly, that was the sect that we actually went down for the trial. And if I'm not mistaken, they took a plea that day.
That's great. Chris Devaney is in the live chat. He said, Walter, thank you for all you do and your kind words.
Like I said, Chris, good luck in your retirement. And there's a guy you want to have on this show. Everybody in the NYPD should know his name. And you talk about a guy that's like super low key and, just a good guy, salt of the earth, New York's finest.
It's always probably the people that are the best at what they do, great athletes, great fighters, that are the most humble. And same thing with police officers. Some of the best are the most humble,
Yeah, I'll throw another name at you. A good buddy of mine. He was a boss on the job, Tommy Barnes. He became boss, early in his career, but he was involved in tons of great arrests, supervised some great cops that, he had his hands in on a lot of good stuff. Wasn't a big metal guy. That just wasn't his thing, but after he retired, I went on to do a lot of security, executive protection type work. And Tommy was doing some work. And sure enough, I don't know if you remember this, it was in Harlem where, I don't know if it was one or two perps were robbing a pharmacy. And I think it was two female officers showed up and the perps came out shooting. And turns out,
that was in the 2-3. Yeah, an off-duty lieutenant shot and killed the guy.
That Tommy Barnes, and cool, calm, and collect. He's filling up his boss, his client's, his vehicle. That was his take-home vehicle. And cool, calm, and collected. The perp shooting at the cop and running towards Tommy, and I think he fired 3 rounds, hit the guy 3 times and 2 times in the head or once in the chest.
Yeah, he was a chauffeur for some rich guy, and I heard the guy wasn't too happy that he got in the shootout.
No, he wasn't. But
you're my chauffeur. Don't be getting in shootouts.
Yeah, Tommy's a good cop and a good friend, a good salt of the earth guy. So we become close over the years, and yeah, I got to tip my hat off to him. Good guy.
I like to shout out to him. He did a fantastic job. There's a picture of you on the screen of your first appearance on Police Off the Cuff.
Man, I look healthy there, night and day from now, huh?
You look much healthier. That was at 35 Worth Street. I look like a little
I'll
fat
tell you what,
get
me on another year from now. Hopefully I can match that look.
You'll be the diesel Walter Wasilewski again.
Yeah,
and Walt, here you are. Do you remember that picture, Walt?
I do. I was that was the hot lunch guy I was talking about. Lieutenant Paul McMahon, good guy, great cop. His dad was a legend on the job, Inspector McMahon.
I know Paul McMahon. Paul McMahon was in the 2-0 anti-crime as a cop.
Okay, yeah. Well, that was I think there was about 4 or 5 guns there. That was one of my last arrests before. That was one of the reasons I retired. We had a pickup of a person stabbed, and then it turns out a second person was stabbed, and the person that got stabbed. Turns out he was like an ex-Golden Gloves guy, but now he's like a crackhead. It was a dispute over drugs and money. And he said he punched the bad guy in the nose and he broke his nose. And I'm like, how do you know he broke his nose? And he showed me he had the Golden Gloves. I mean, now he was like a shell of himself, kind of like I am now after being sick. And he was a Golden Gloves boxer or an ex-Golden Glove, and he punched a perp that just stabbed him. And I look and there's blood in the street. So I asked the guy, I said, were you in the street? He's like, no, he stabbed me. I punched him and I fell here. And that's like, I was literally a couple car lengths away. I didn't see, where the bad guy ran, but I saw the blood in the street. So like, almost like Bugs Bunny or Elmer Fudd, I'm following the blood drops, with the lieutenant, and it goes into a building. And sure enough, it led into the apartment. The perp ended up going out the window, but we eventually got him. And it was that night, and I kid you not, I worked like 3 days straight. There was like 60-something vouchers. There was 5. It was like 10 different types of drugs and money and this and that. But on top of it, I got a bunch of complaints on that. The perp ended up taking, the bad guy ended up taking a plea to like all the case. But he said I stole a gun and a bulletproof vest from him. So meanwhile, wow. I just couldn't. And Internal Affairs actually said, there might be some truth to this. Why would this guy lie? I mean, I just put him out of business, put him away for double attempted murder and 5 guns and A1 felony drug weight, and that's what I realized.
Why would he lie?
Why would he lie? And I was like, you know what? This is the beginning of the end, the alpha, the omega for my career. And shortly after that, I left.
Brenda Redmond, thank you so much for that $5 super chat. We're going to start winding down right now. I mean, Walter is an unbelievable guest. What he does for the NYPD to this day is such a morale booster for everyone that's still on the job. Guys from Anti-Crime reached out to me asking me to thank Walter on the air, and that's what I intended on doing. Getting back a little bit to promote the Police Off the Cuff, we would appreciate if you would join our Patreon. We have 3 tiers to our Patreon. For $7 a month, you get called the Bucket. For $9 a month, you get all our content, and you can get to polish my rack. And for $11 a month, that's the premier tier. You get to dip anything you want in butter. All right. So that's for $11 a month. Also, would you please join our YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We just went over 3,000, and we're trying to build that up. Duty Ron has helped us a lot build our YouTube channel up, and that's the key to having a successful podcast. Walter, what can I say, man? All I can say
listen, I appreciate you having me on not once but twice. It means a lot to me. It's important that the work that I do it. I don't do it for myself. I mean, I do get a kick out of it. I find it fascinating, but I do it for the cops. Like my webpage on Facebook, anybody that's out there that's not a member, it's NYPD Valor. It's a private page on Facebook. You don't have to be decorated. You could be in the academy. The only thing I do ask is there's 3 questions that you have to answer. Just answer the questions to get on, and you got to keep it to just NYPD Valor. I don't get into politics. I don't get into opinions. We all know that the governor sucks and politicians. And the criminal justice system doesn't work, and we get that. But my page is not for that. It's just for the cops. It's those that go beyond the line of duty. I know you keep showing the coin. We have a coin, NYPD Valor coin. I know you. It's part of the.
Let me see if I can put it. There you go, Walt. There it is.
There you go. Yeah, I designed the coin. It's all about. It's all the medals of the NYPD, and at the bottom of it says NYPD Valor, and Beyond the Line of Duty is the actual original webpage. They're available through the website. That's it, man. I tip my hat off to the cops today. I'll tell you one name I just want to mention real quick before we can end this. I'd like to give a shout out and a congratulations on his retirement. Is Chief of the Department, Terrence Monaghan. I know him since he was a sergeant in the 4-6. He eventually came back as captain. He was the CO twice of the 4-6, and a great guy and a great cop. Lately there's a lot of things going on in the news and with the riots and so on and so forth. But there's a guy I personally was in a car with him as a boss and put a lot of bad guys away with him at my side, hands on, getting his hands dirty. Rolling around with bad guys all the way up to the rank, a full inspector. Then he left. And even now, when he made chief of the department, he was out there getting bloodied. And, people throw other names out there of chiefs of the department. And, oh, this guy would have did this. And there is no other chief of the department that I know of since, we have the video cameras and so on. That was a hands-on guy that got his hands dirty. And I tell you what, I wish him nothing but the best in his new career. And, he did a lot for me over the years, and just a good friend, and just probably one of the smartest guys I've ever worked with in the NYPD.
Walt, I'm sure that he'll appreciate that shout out you gave him. It was really heartfelt and from the heart, and I'm sure.
Yeah, good man. I tip my hat, and I wish him well. Again, I want to, thank you for having me. Another shout out to the PBA. They do a lot of good stuff behind the scenes, a lot of things you don't hear about. All the cops that are, getting sick and those that pass. And, it seems like every other day you turn on the social media, someone passed away from something, and they're always involved. And you know what? The cops out there doing God's work, taking the guns off the street. Main thing is you go home safe. You go home just the way you came to work. You protect yourself, you protect your partner, protect your family, protect your pension. And always remember, on the street, you're the boss. You are the boss. You make a decision, you stick by that decision, you take control of that situation. Make sure you get home safe, continue what you're doing, keep up the good work, keep doing what we say, God's work.
Walt, thank you so much for coming on the show, and all the folks that were watching tonight, and especially you folks that gave me money with your super chats. I really appreciate it. We're keeping Police Off the Cuff going, and this Thursday we have SBA President Ed Mullins coming on. Monday we have Chief Joe Fox, and I'm keeping as the producer and the talent and the director. I'm wearing many hats, but you guys, thank you so much for watching. From Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories, I'm Bill Cannon. Thank you so much, and good night.